Well, if you're watching SailGP for the very first time, the start is absolutely crucial. Look at the speeds already. They mustn't start that line before zero. Japan trying to put pressure. Denmark down this bottom side, the French on the far side. But it's Japan looking good at the moment on the inside. So many times in the practice races here, it's been the opening leg that has determined the race. Japan have got a penalty. Well, that could be a real disappointment there for Nathan Outridge. So it was a good start, but then just look at the foreground. The French, 45.9 knots. This is superb. Great drama in the first 35 seconds of racing.
Turning up here. Yep.
Well, look at Great Britain trying to come wide on the outside. They were up towards 40 knots. The big magic number is 50. We had to wait until cows to hit that in season 1. There's a Great Britain protest there. We will get a few of these. Conditions far trickier than the 2 practice days. And by the way, of their races so far, the new boy, if you can call the most decorated Olympian in history in Ben Ainsley a new boy, 5 wins out of 6 races. He has been on fire so far, but not in these conditions. This is different today. This is much better from the French here in the early stages of race 1.
Yeah, I think the boat handling is going to be absolutely crucial today. We heard from Saskia. They're on the higher speed boards. They're smaller. They're more twitchy. They've got to keep the boat going at a faster speed. And the main problem is these guys haven't had any practice. It's been light winds before today, and today we've got huge changes in pressure, huge changes in direction, so actually the skill of flying the boat is going to be very, very hard.
This is a really confident start from Ben Ainsley.
Go wing wide. I got it. Big wing. Why are we so wide? I don't know.
Great Britain still leading, but this is getting tight now. The French going well. Denmark in 3rd.
But out in front, the British have really pieced this up wing leg together. A lot more manoeuvres than we're used to seeing on a classic SailGP course, and that's really rewarding the practice.
There was a penalty there for the French, but it looks as though they've managed to overcome it. They're in a podium position at the moment. This is much better from Billy Besson, the 6-time world champion.
Happy to roll away a little? Yeah. Trying to get off into the pressure cubes. Yeah, copy. Got a bit of a twist in the wing. Yeah, here we go. Breathe back on now. Yep, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it's just great communication on board the British boat there. In such tricky conditions to sail it this smooth. Lovely ley line. Going to turn the boat up now. Looking to see no spray. Lovely rounding.
I got it.
He's 5 out of 6 in the practice races we've seen this week in Sydney.
You can see upwind there. Look at the breeze on the water, the darker patches. You can see there's a lovely dark patch by Shark Island. We'll expect to see Ben to go out, but keep to the left of Shark Island as we go up the course. I think if you get too close... Whoa!
Protest.
And there was a big collision there. And you've heard the call of protest. And that's hugely disappointing for the French. The French and the Spanish colliding there. They were doing so well. By the way, the Americans have done really well to get up into 3rd.
The rules have changed slightly this season. They are, last season there was no contact. This season they are allowed to sort of push it all a little bit tighter and a bit closer. So they're obviously not wanting to cause damage.
Here's another look at exactly what happened.
Protest.
And the call came up for a protest straight away.
Keep on sailing.
Great too.
Just half a lap to go for the inaugural race win for Ben Ainsley. So far, so good.
I think the fact they've missed that mark by so far with that tack's a late change of opinion. They've obviously seen some wind very late. To the right of screen here is the lap. You can't see the wind coming from there, so they've had to make a late call. They've changed the plan, but they've executed it really well to get away.
And look at the way Nathan Outridge has come back into the hunt for a podium position. It's Tom Slingsby rounding the mark, the Olympic champion, the former World Sailor of the Year, but he's behind another World Sailor of the Year, Ben Ainsley and Great Britain. They're leading at the moment, and then a big gap behind the Americans, back down to the Spanish and the French, who, remember, had that collision, and it's the Vikings of Denmark bringing up the rear at the moment.
This battle for 3rd is going to be really close.
Coming into pressure, we work. Copy. Okay.
This is Great Britain closing in on the finish. What a view. And there is the inaugural win. Race 1, job done for the greatest Olympic sailor in history. What a declaration of intent by big Ben Ainslie.
We had a hell of a moment there, Goob.
A hell of a moment, it certainly was. And Tom Slingsby, well, if you're not going to win the opening race, second isn't too bad. But in this guy's vocabulary, second is nowhere. He is intent on making sure he successfully defends this title. It's a second place finish, but that's the best he's done all week here in Sydney, as we watch Nathan Outridge closing out on that third podium position. And we really do have in SailGP for Season 2 a triumvirate of excellence. Ben Ainslie, Tom Slingsby, Nathan Outridge, three of the greatest sailors of our era, and they are all set to go toe-to-toe all season long. That's the 1, 2, 3, and Rome Kirby bringing the Americans home for a solid 4th place. They've got plenty to work on for the last 2 races of the day. So often these races are won by the team who reach the first mark with clear air and clear water, and look at Great Britain coming through. The last few seconds. Watch down the bottom of the screen. Denmark, the Americans coming high on the top end. They're underway. Let's watch for the Ps. There don't appear to be any penalties, although I say that, and there is one there for Japan. We'll clarify what that's for. They're heading down towards the first mark. Great Britain having taken the opening race. This is much better from the Danes. They had a torrid time in race 1. They've really found it difficult to adjust. They are one of the 2 new outfits for SailGP, but it's Great Britain, 36 knots. These boats are unprecedented in their speed, but they require such delicate handling, the touch of genius, and it's so far so good for Great Britain and Ben Ainslie. The USA in 2nd, Spain 3rd, Denmark 4th, then Japan and Australia. Tom Slingsby with a little bit to do here.
That's the Australian boat having to jibe away. They're at the back of the fleet, so they've had to try and make something happen. The British team here, nearly straight down to the gate. Those 2 yellow lines. And you can...
I think they're in on this. They're just going to turn up. No manoeuvre required. So that jibe, the jibe at the top by the Australians is kind of wasted distance sailed.
Yeah, that's a really big wind shift. Great comms from the British there, very clear on board. The whole team knows what's happening. That was Richard Mason confirming the call from Ben Ainslie you heard there. The British have pieced this first beat together absolutely beautifully, and they're staying in that lovely patch of dark water. It's going to be interesting to see what the Americans do with Shark Island. Do they tack, go back to the side we saw was favourable last time, or are they going to go for a bit of a Hail Mary round the outside here? And at the moment, it looks like they're throwing all chips in. And it's a really tight cross here. To me, the British are still just about ahead, looking for a right turn. Be interested to see what the USA think. Do they come back where they've come from? Or do they keep it simple, go straight, and they're going to end up splitting Shark Island the other way, downwind?
Quite often what you find is what paid on the upwind should be what pays on the downwind. So it's interesting, they're both now doing the opposite to what they did on the upwind. They're going the other, splitting the difference the other way.
Yeah, you see that wing moving, that's all the grinders. So every time the heel changes on the boat, the grinders have got to catch that with a big trim. You can see huge separation here. The Americans, something's happened to them on the far side of the course.
Down to less than 10 knots, where the last time we saw them, they were over 40. This is a nightmare scenario for the Americans. What on earth could have gone wrong?
I mean, you've described it pretty well there. It's a nightmare scenario. They either just did a terrible manoeuvre on the jibe, and they went onto 2 foils, which looks like it is, and then they were in a light patch and couldn't get back up on the foils.
So they were in hot pursuit of Great Britain, who are still leading, and they will have a bigger gap than they would have been expecting back to Denmark at the last time of asking, which is fantastic for them, because in all of the races we've seen so far this week, they've not managed to finish higher than 5th.
But yeah, really smooth from the British. They've pieced this together. The boat's flying. It's definitely the most stable looking platform we can see out on the water. The only way that can happen is the philosophy of being proactive, not reactive. If you react to the gusts, you're going to be behind.
But here we are, watching the leader. It's 2 from 2. from the greatest Olympic sailor in history. He has returned to the waters that brought him so much glory 2 decades ago, still delivering at the very top of the sport. That's a fabulous second place for the Spaniards. That will settle their nerves and give them the belief that they belong at this highest level.
Nice work.
And there's Tom Slingsby.
Nice come back, boys.
Goodness me, it's been a tough day. Second in the opening race, third this time, and that pushes Nathan Outridge at the helm of Japan. Third in the first race for the Japanese. He's off the podium this time in fourth. Sehested bringing the Danish home in fifth, and the Americans, dear oh dear, after looking like they were going to put the Brits under pressure, bringing up the rear of the fleet in sixth.
Still the same height.
One more race to come this afternoon, but it's full points for Ben Ainsley and Great Britain's SailGP. Fabulous runner-up spot there for the Spaniards. Tom Slingsby and Australia down to third, but still very much in the mix. Nathan Outridge fourth, Denmark a little better, and for Rome Kirby and the United States, that's a race to forget.
This last race, very windy, very gusty, fatigue's going to come into play.
The last 10 seconds, that's the view from the hull of Tom Slingsby, the defending champions. They could really do with finishing off with a great performance here, but look at the British here down at the bottom, the Japanese at the top. Surely that's a penalty. Well, multiple penalties there. Great Britain, Australia and Japan. We'll keep a close eye to see what happens with that one. That was better, certainly from the point of view of Tom Slingsby. And he's got the bit between his teeth. He is an alpha male. He's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and he will not like the fact that he's been bossed
penalty USA
on his home waters.
Spain.
Penalty.
Negative, penalty clear, penalty clear.
For USA, despite the fact that they're up there now with 42 knots. Really important for Tom Slingsby that he asserts some dominance here on the fleet, because he was absolutely rampant 12 months ago. It was the platform from which he built towards the inaugural championship of SailGP. 4 wins out of 5 12 months ago here in Sydney.
Really, really patchy. You can see on the top of the screen the Danish in no wind, and these two coming around this, turning left around this mark, have come around in really nice pressure, and they're going to be first and second. We've got a penalty there with the Japanese though.
Yeah, that was a windward leeward, so the Spanish came round on the outside and were able to turn up towards the wind, pressurise the Japanese.
I've got it.
Much better performance so far from the Americans. Nathan Outridge still with that penalty. The Spaniards going well, but remember, they're already effectively 2 points down in this race, because the French are not able to take their place in this last fleet race of day one. USA going well on the far side of the racetrack. Shark Island right in the middle. It's caused quite a few issues, but we would have expected that. We knew this was going to be tight. That's so close with the Spanish and the Japanese there.
Here we go, close duck behind there, but it's a pretty comfortable situation. As close as that looked for the professional guys on the boat, that was pretty straightforward. We've got another split here. Group top left, Nathan Outridge and the Japanese team coming to the right. Bit of a Hail Mary, but I'm sure he can see this dark water that we're seeing on the screen. Could be a little game for the Japanese team here. You see the Spanish there coming from that side that historically has been the favoured side of Shark Island, on that far side of it as we look at it. The Spanish have been smooth all the way up the beat, kept the boat going nicely. So the cross here is the Japanese with the right of way coming in from the right. We expect to see the Japanese and the Spanish take separate marks.
From here, standing by, coming away. 2, 1, here we go.
Nathan Outridge sounding cool, calm and composed. And that was a feature of season 1 of SailGP.
You can really see it from these helicopter shots. You can see the dark bits of the screen is darker water, that's more wind. And you can see the Japanese on the top right of our screen. They're in a light, slightly more glassy patch of water. They're in less wind. So gain to the Spanish, gain to the British.
I think watching the British boat here, they're just sailing very, very smoothly. They're quite, the ride height there, you can see it's not as high as we might like. We'd like to see up near a metre. Spanish are doing a great job there. But in this gusty weather, you've got to adapt your style. And I wonder if the Australians are just pushing that a little bit too hard, trying to be at their normal, fast, high-flying mode. And this isn't the weather for it. So they're used to that excellence. And today's a bit more of a day of working working the averages.
Right wheel, wing. Your wheel.
Oh, that is close. And you know, like sailors amongst us watching this, you know, in our normal boats, that isn't such high drama. But these boats are the speeds they're going and they're closing at. It's just a big commitment to go for that cross when it's tight.
The Australians trying to close in on Japan in third and USA in fourth. Tom Slingsby will give this absolutely everything as they close in on the finish, just down to the bottom and the finish. Nathan Outridge in third. Remember, he's had a third place finish and a fourth place finish. I think this has been a good day considering he's bedding in a new wing trim and a new flight controller. This has been class from Outridge. We are in Sydney and Ben Ainslie is flying.
Yeah, you can just see the British there constantly were flying the boat higher. They look like they've got a ley line. They're going to be round this mark in one, and I think we're going to be calling them into the finish from this mark now. Lovely smooth rounding, and what a time to overtake.
This is superb from Great Britain. It's a hat-trick on the opening day. It's a dream start for one of the all-time greats. Phil Robertson bringing the Spaniards home in second, but remember they will have a 2-point penalty because their clash with the French meant that Billy Besson and his team were unable to take their place on the starting lineup. And it's 2 podiums from 3 races for the Japanese. That, I think, in light of the fact that he's dealing with a pretty much brand new crew, is superb. And look at Tom Slingsby trying to put some pressure on Rome Kirby there. Kirby coming home for fourth, Slingsby in fifth. Well, he's got a little bit to do on day 2.
That was tough. Yeah.
Well, we just about have time to pause for breath. 30 points from 3 races. It's the dream start for Ben Ainslie. Phil Robertson, the charismatic Kiwi, bringing the Spaniards home for their second successive second-place finish. Nathan Outridge, a second podium finish for him. Tom Slingsby with a lot to do on day 2.